All right, today we are going to spend time finally talking about the crown jewel of the judicial branch. We're going to talk about the Supreme Court. We'll talk about how it operates, how the judges get there, all the stuff we need to know about the Supreme Court. You see the beautiful Supreme Court building in the background. This is right behind the Congress building, very close. And then over there on our left, those are our newest justices on the Supreme Court. So they're our young judges, and so they'll be with us for a while. We'll talk about them and get to know them as well. All right, so our job today, our objective, we are going to describe the operations of the Supreme Court. So we're going to go through how the cases get there, what happens when the case is there. We're going to talk about how the court's independent, and we're going to talk about the changing politics of the Supreme Court. And we want to do that because we need to explain how the Supreme Court checks and interacts with other branches. This is all going to be about how help us understand how the Supreme Court can influence what the other branches of government can do. So what we're going to do today, our question we're going to answer, how does the Supreme Court operate? All right, to start today, we're going to explore how the Supreme Court is independent, what makes the Supreme Court independent from the other branches, and why that is important. Here we see some of our judges, a couple of them no longer judges, but my friend Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she fell asleep in the middle of the State of the Union address. So Obama's up there giving a speech talking about what he's going to do all year, and RBG, she passed right out. Later, they asked her about it. She said she had a glass of wine with dinner. So Ruth was getting wild and partied a little too hard for the State of the Union address. All right, so first we'll talk about the independence of the court system. We're going to talk about why this happens. But it is important that the court is independent of the other branches, right? The court's job, like we talked about, is mainly to tell the other branches, you can't do that. So the only way they're going to be able to do that effectively is if the other branches do not control what the court does. The court also needs to be independent from public opinion, because the court is here to answer questions and to decide what is right, not what is popular. Those two things don't always mix. So this is what allows the court, like if they don't have to worry about Congress and the president and they don't have to worry about the voters, this is what allows the judges to make the best, most fair decision. They don't have to worry about it. Sometimes they'll be, making decisions about people's rights that are unpopular. Sometimes they'll be protecting a small minority group that public opinion is opposed to or something like that. But they have to be able to make the best decision, not the decision that is popular with the voters or not the decision that's going to please the president or Congress. Now, the reason that the Supreme Court does not have to worry about public opinion is because voters don't decide who the judges are. The president decides who the judges are. They're approved by Congress. Once they are judges, they serve for life. They're not going to lose that job because they become unpopular. So they don't have to worry about keeping people happy and all that. The Constitution says that their salaries cannot be reduced. That's an important check. So they can't get a pay cut because people don't like the way they're deciding things. This allows them to focus on what is fair. This last one is very important. The Supreme Court controls its own docket. It does not have to take any cases. It chooses the cases that it's going to hear and decide, and it cannot be forced to hear a case or make a decision. So that's really, really important for the court and helps the court control what it wants to do. There's a lot of reasons why the Supreme Court can't get too far away from public opinion. So it's not totally independent of public opinion. They do worry about what the people think of them. They worry about their own legitimacy. We'll talk about that later when we're talking about Chief Justice John Roberts. That's really, really important to him that the public recognize the courts as a legitimate and equal branch. But here's what keeps them from being too far away from public opinion. The main thing is implementing their decisions. The courts rely on other people to implement their decisions. They rely on other branches of government. When they make a decision, all they can do is announce their decision. They can't make their decision real. So they have to make sure that what they're deciding, that they maintain some connection with the public and the other branches. They need to keep their legitimacy here. The judges can be impeached if they do something wrong, and that could be for anything. So we want to, they make sure that they're not too far away from public opinion that way. The voters, we elect the people that appoint them. We elect the people that confirm them. So when the voters are unhappy with the types of judges that are making it onto the federal court, then the voters can put pressure on the Congress, or the judges can put pressure on the president. The voters also have an opportunity to pressure Congress not to confirm a judge. So this has come up lately, as there's been a lot of attention on President Trump's judicial nominees and lots of movements to try to get Congress to prevent President Trump from naming nominees here. Also, the voters, through Congress, we can pass amendments to the Constitution. And amendments to the Constitution force the court to make decisions that we want them to make. So we, the people, through Congress, we can amend the Constitution, and then through the states ratify that and force the Supreme Court to change the way they're deciding certain issues. All right, this one's important. We won't talk about it many other times here, so important to remember here, the Supreme Court controls their own docket. That means they choose which cases they hear. They only end up hearing about 1% of all the cases that try to get into the Supreme Court. They can't be forced to hear any kind of cases, and they can ignore cases that they don't want to hear, or cases that they don't think have any merit. So they'll hear cases, usually if they think there's disagreements between like national and state courts, or there may be disagreements between two different circuit courts, they'll probably take those. But they can ignore any case that they don't want to hear, and that gives them a lot of independence from the other branches. Another way they try to stay independent is they avoid what is kind of vaguely called political questions. So the court will take cases that are disputes about legal situations, but they're not going to get involved in things that are just fights between Republicans and Democrats. And this is important. The Supreme Court, the reason they have this power is because we accept it, right? It's not in the Constitution or anything. We accept that the Supreme Court should have this important power to decide things. So they have to seem independent to the public. They can't seem overly partisan to the public. So they need both sides of the political spectrum, the Republicans and the Democrats, the conservatives and the liberals, to appreciate and respect the Supreme Court and its decisions. They try to stay, as much as they can, they try to stay above the political process. And that's one of the main reasons I will always correct you guys if we call a judge a Democrat or a Republican. Judges are conservative or liberal, but we're going to say that judges don't have political parties. So we're not going to describe anybody as a Democrat judge or a Republican judge. They are appointed by Democrats and Republicans, but the judges themselves don't belong to a political party, and that's important. So that helps the Supreme Court avoid politics, and so they're staying out of politics, and that helps them remain independent. All right, that's our first step today. We're just going to talk about the independence of the court, what keeps them kind of paying attention to public opinion, but what insulates them from public opinion and from regular everyday politics. So now we're going to move on to the processes in the Supreme Court. We're going to look at how cases make it to the Supreme Court, and then we're going to look at how judges make it onto the Supreme Court.